Well, good.
Good. So how do you and other folks that work here at Lake Shack CPA help a business capture or understand or position themselves for all those audiences?
Well, I'd like to say that that's our main focus. I think paying income tax is a good thing because that means you've had a successful year. The more tax you pay, hopefully the more you get to keep. And so many people look at the check that they write on April 15th as a negative, and I look at it as a positive. I look at it as a reward for the efforts for the year and a reward for the good decisions and the planning that were made for a long time in order to achieve it. But it's unfortunate that we meet business owners that really have no idea how income tax is even calculated. They have no idea, the results and what happens or why do I owe this much or why do I not owe this much this year. And that's because their selected group of confidants and advisors really have never taken the time to teach them. It's important to learn about your business very, very early in the game so that it becomes a successful investment for your family. Of course, it's a livelihood, but it's also an investment. It's going to be sold one day. So we have to get the best value out of it. And that's what business succession is all about.
So what is it like when
I'm screwing you up here. This is all my fault. Been out of the game too long. Now we're good, I promise.
I mean, we don't even need the microphone. I can just yell.
Is that how things are done around here? All right.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned that you see business owners come in that have just no visibility and no idea about their financials or what those mean. How do you work with your clients, and what is that experience like for people who actually know? I don't know, how is it different than the folks that come in that don't know?
Well, the first thing we do is we attempt to look at the last 2 or 3 years' tax returns. And then we have some very pointed questions that we ask the business owner about those years. Financially, how did the business do? Why were you successful? Why weren't you successful? Why are you even here? Why are you thinking of changing accountants? And so many times the answer is, we don't get any answers. We don't get any information from our CPA or our investment advisor or our lawyer. We don't get any answers to help us run the business. And that's not always the accountant's fault. A lot of time it's the taxpayer's fault or the client's fault because they've wanted to run their business and run it the way they'd like to, not really wanted any input, wanted any answers. And it's time to tap the resources that are available for you in order to make your business successful.
How often do you communicate with clients about their business finances? Is it April 1st you talk with them once a year?
Well, right now, we just completed it April 15th, and it's time to start planning for next year. So many people that we've serviced in the busy season didn't have an accountant see them all year. You need a physical, go to the doctor twice a year, get a specialist if there's something going on that needs to be assisted. Find the people that you can rely upon and that you trust. And if the people that you're currently working with you don't trust, it's time to move on. And that's kind of our approach. We'd like to meet at least quarterly with the bigger businesses or the bigger clients, especially if they do not have an internal accounting system or a CFO. We call it being a virtual CFO, to have someone on the outside really giving a cold look at the business without seeing that business on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so how is that a little more, I guess, in-depth or involved than maybe just CPA services?
Well, I think when we talk about virtual CFO, we talk about a consultant. We talk about somebody that is learning your business and recommending and helping you set goals and helping you budget things, getting financial statements ready to go to the bank when it's time to grow, when it's time to borrow. It takes time to be involved with all of that detail. Being an accountant in preparing a tax return with numbers that you don't really understand, it's a service, but I think it could be more of a detriment than a service, because mistakes are made that way.
And it's more than just numbers and tax payments, right? It's about understanding the business owner's goals and helping them achieve them.
Right. Well, again, people a lot of times think that writing a check is a bad thing, or they don't even understand why they were turned down for a loan. They have never done a budget for their business, and they've been a business owner for 25 years. They just kind of wing it next year because we had a good year this year, we'll do it the same way. We're not going to improve, we're not going to change, we're not going to look for opportunities. And as you know, life is changing by the minute. In personal things that you do, in business things that you do, there's always a progression. And you don't want to be left behind.
Do you think, or do you hear a lot that business owners, they just don't have the time to sit down and do it, or to meet, or to...
Yes, but I usually take that as a sign that they want to do it their way. They don't necessarily want to take the time to sit down and get input. Not that someone else should dictate what you do in your business, but a sounding board, rather than talking to your uncle or someone who knows nothing about business and taking their advice on what you should do. Maybe you should look for someone who's had that experience and has done it before.
How many business owners have you encountered that are also CPAs?
0.
So,
And we in the profession find it pretty easy to manipulate the numbers and make things work. But if you're not numbers oriented, sometimes a business person treats it as a foreign language. Accountancy, we call a language the language of business. But it's like speaking a language sometimes that's foreign to a business owner if he really doesn't understand what all the numbers mean and what the effects are of what he's planning to do.
it's almost having their tax information in a translator book, and hours and hours of valuable time that business owner could be doing what they do best.
Well, the key becomes once you find someone you can work with and rely upon, the trust is there. You're not second guessing the information because you know the information is correct. When people say they're too busy, they often don't get the information right. And it takes the accountant a lot of time and a lot of effort to make it right before any kind of consulting can be done. So the sooner that you can take your accounting system and develop it and make it grow and make sure that it's capturing the right information, we can then rely upon that without having to go back and recreate the wheel every time.
And then you can look at things like business expansion, transition, and ultimately planning for that next level of succession.
Well, sure, and it becomes, you want to do what you do best, okay? And an entrepreneur should spend his time or her time planning, brainstorming, understanding, meeting with customers, not necessarily making the product or manufacturing something. You might be the best at doing it in your organization. That's how you started the business in the first place. But if you don't train anybody else, that asset, that business is not saleable. It may pass away when you pass away.
And, certainly, we've seen in the area, in Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, and beyond, a lot of business growth and right out your window business development like crazy. So there's a lot of new business owners getting into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about, at some point, the economy is probably going to slow back down. And are they ready for that?
Well, it's the spirit. 40 years ago, people out of high school or recently graduating college were looking for a job. They probably weren't even looking for a career. They were looking for a job. And they were hoping that they were hired by a business that was going to take care of them the rest of their life.
Is that what you hoped?
For a short time, okay? For a very short time. But then I found that you must be independent. You must take care of yourself and your own. And you can't really rely upon big business to do that for you. In Northwest Indiana, were you fortunate enough to be hired by an oil company as compared to a steel company? Who knew what was going to happen in the retirees from, BP, probably doing just a little bit better than people retiring from Inland Steel? Were they smarter? Did they work harder? Did they do? No. They were lucky to be hired by the right place. So I think what you have to do is you have to be hired by the right place, and that's a place that you control and that you can make the decisions for and you can react to, rather than being an employee where it's completely beyond your control, your income level, your benefits level, what's going to happen. It seems, even now with the presidential election, that people are looking for politics to give them something. Maybe we'll have free college tuition. Maybe we'll have free medical care. Maybe we'll. How about if you just work for it and get it done yourself? Be an adult and take care of yourself and your family. That's why I find politics so exciting since today's election day.
Yeah, we've got a primary. Did you vote this morning?
I didn't this afternoon, I think,
Yeah, good.
because I really haven't decided which is the least.
Probably.
Well, I didn't know what is the least of all evils,
As usual.
and and I'm not quite sure, who would be the best for business.